Hello friends, I'm here to tell you a relaxing story which leads you to sleep with sweet dreams. Let's start a new story. Whisper of the moonlight forest, the last rays of sunlight dip low behind the distant hills, painting the sky in a soft wash of lavender and rose. A hush fell over the land as the day gently folded into night. In a quiet corner of the world where wildflowers bowed to the breeze and dragonflies whispered over still ponds, a small figure stood at the edge of a pine forest. Her name was Elizabeth. She had always been drawn to this place, the way the tall pines leaned close together like old friends sharing secrets, and how the forest hummed with a music too quiet for most to hear. But tonight felt different. The air carried a softness, a subtle shimmer as though the forest itself was waiting. Alira took a slow breath, filling her lungs with the scent of pine needles and moss. Her fingers brushed the smooth bark of the nearest tree. She had passed this way many times, but tonight her eyes caught something new. A narrow path winding deeper into the trees, one she had never seen before. It was faint, as if the forest had only just decided to reveal it. She paused for a moment. There was no fear in her, only a stillness like the space between heartbeats. Then with quiet steps she followed the path. Pine needles crunched gently beneath her feet, muffling the world behind her. The trees grew taller, their branches reaching up like arms cradling the sky. Tiny golden fireflies blinked to life, swirling lazily in the cool dusk air. The hush of the forest deepened with every step, and Alira's thoughts grew soft and quiet like leaves drifting down a slow stream. The path curved gently as though it knew she wasn't in a hurry. It led her past a mossy stone shaped like a sleeping fox and under an arch of birch trees whose white bark glowed like moonlight. She felt no need to speak, no need to rush. The forest welcomed her in silence, wrapping her in peace. A breeze swept through the trees, carrying the faintest sound, like the sigh of a lullaby just beginning. It was barely there, yet it tugged gently at her heart, like a memory she couldn't quite place. She closed her eyes and listened, letting the sound guide her. Soon she came upon a clearing round and still, where the trees opened like curtains around a quiet stage. The grass shimmered silver beneath the twilight, and in the center stood a weathered wooden bench, old but strong, as though it had waited many seasons for someone to sit and rest. Alira sat down slowly, her eyes wide with wonder. Overhead, the first stars blinked awake. The wind grew softer, cradling the branches in a slow lull. Somewhere far off, an owl called once, low and deep, and the sound echoed like a question and an answer all at once. She felt it then. Not fear, not excitement, but a calm curiosity, the kind that only arrives when the heart is quiet and the soul is listening. And the forest, ancient and gentle, whispered softly around her. She had taken her first step onto the path beyond the pines, and the story, like the night, was just beginning. Alira sat quietly on the old wooden bench, her hands resting in her lap, her eyes turned skyward. Above her, the stars blinked and twinkled like distant campfire. The clearing was calm, wrapped in silver hush, and every breath she took seemed to deepen the peace around her. Then came a soft flutter, not sharp or startling, but smooth and slow like silk in the wind. From the darkness above, an owl descended, wings wide and silent, gliding down in graceful circles until it landed on a low branch just across from her. Its feathers were the color of twilight, dusky gray with flecks of white like stardust, and its amber eyes glowed warm in the dim light. Alira didn't move, she didn't have to. The owl was not afraid. For a long moment they simply looked at one another. There was no need for words, yet somehow in the quiet space between heartbeats and breaths, she felt something stir inside her, as though the owl had brought with it more than just feathers and sight. Then the owl spoke, not aloud, but in a way that filled her mind like music just on the edge of dreaming. "You have entered the forest of whispers," it said. "A few find this path, even fewer are ready to walk it." Alira's heart fluttered, but not from fear. The owl's voice was deep and soft, like a melody wrapped in night. "Why am I here?" She found herself asking, not with her lips, but with her thoughts. The owl blinked slowly. "You were searching, not with your eyes, but with your soul. The forest called to you, and you answered." The wind rustled the leaves gently, and the stars above shimmered a little brighter, as if listening too. Alira looked down at her hands. She didn't quite understand what she was searching for, only that something inside her had grown quiet in the everyday world. There had been noise and rushing and doing, but not much being. and tonight something deeper had stirred. The owl stretched its wings slightly and a soft feather drifted to the ground. Each traveler who walks the moonlight path receives a message, the owl continued. But not all messages are given in words. Sometimes they come as dreams, as feelings, as a hush in the heart where truth can be heard. Alira nodded, not because she fully understood, but because she could feel the truth in the owl's presence. It wasn't about knowing everything. It was about listening. The owl turned its head slightly, gazing deeper into the forest. Follow the lanterns, it said, voice now barely a breath. They will lead you to the place where your question waits to be answered. Then, as softly as it had come, the owl lifted from the branch. Its wings barely stirred the air, yet Alira felt a shift around her, like the moment between sleep and dreaming. She watched as the owl glided back into the night, vanishing into the trees with one final silent sweep of wing. For a while, Alira simply sat in the stillness, her heart full of quiet wonder. The forest no longer felt unfamiliar. It felt like a story she was just beginning to remember, one written long ago in a language of starlight, wind, and moon. And just as the owl had said when she stood and looked to the edge of the clearing, she saw them. Tiny golden lanterns glowing softly in the distance, suspended from low branches, stretching gently into the deeper woods like a trail of stars. With a slow breath and peaceful steps, Alira began to follow. The golden lanterns hung like stars just within reach, their glow soft and steady, flickering with a warmth that felt alive. Alira followed them quietly, her footsteps light on the forest floor. The moss beneath her feet cushioned every step, and the cool night air wrapped around her like a velvet shawl. Each lantern was cradled in delicate vines suspended from the low-hanging branches of ancient trees. They gave off no smoke, no heat, just a gentle glow that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the forest itself. As she passed beneath them, she noticed how they lit more than just the path. They lit memories, not sharp or clear, but hazy feelings that stirred her heart like the fading remnants of dreams. She walked deeper into the woods, the trees growing taller, their trunks wide with age. Some leaned together as if in quiet conversation, their branches intertwined like the arms of old friends. The silence was soft, not empty, full of presence, of listening, of unseen life moving slowly in the dark. The lanterns curved and dipped through the trees, leading her onward until the forest opened suddenly into a glade. It was like stepping into a dream that had been waiting for her all along. The glade was circular, surrounded by silver leaf trees that shimmered in the moonlight. Their leaves barely moved, yet their whispering filled the air like the sound of a lullaby sung from far away. Dozens of lanterns floated gently above the glade, suspended in midair by invisible threads. They swayed ever so slightly as if breathing, casting soft golden ripples across the grass below. Alira stepped into the clearing slowly, afraid the moment might vanish if she moved too quickly. In the center of the glade stood a stone pedestal, smooth and low, with ivy growing gently along its base. Upon it rested a small glass orb, no larger than an apple, glowing faintly with the same golden light as the lantern. The closer Alira moved, the more she felt the warmth of the orb, not on her skin, but in her chest where her heartbeat lived. She knelt beside the pedestal, gazing into the orb. Inside it swirled tiny lights, not chaotic, but moving with grace like memories dancing in water. She reached out a hand, hesitating just before touching it. Then softly, her fingertips brushed the glass. A deep, calming breath moved through the trees. The lanterns brightened just a little, and the orb began to hum, not loudly, just enough for her to feel it in her fingertips and bones. The hum was a note of pure comfort, like the first chord of a song you haven't heard in years, but somehow still know. In her mind, images floated up, a distant field she once played in as a child, a warm hand holding hers under a star-filled sky, the sound of her mother's voice humming a lullaby long ago. Tears pricked her eyes, not from sadness, but from the strange, sweet ache of remembering what had once been whole and quiet inside her. The orb's light pulsed gently, then dimmed, returning to its soft glow. Alira let her hand fall to her lap and sat still, breathing in the hush that followed. The glade was still, the lantern swayed, and Alira knew that she had been given something, not a message in words, but a reminder. She was not lost. She was being gently guided home to herself. She stayed in the glade a while longer, letting the feeling soak deep into her heart. Then just beyond the far end of the clearing, she noticed the path begin again. Darker now, winding into deeper forest. With quiet strength she stood, and with the lanterns behind her, walked softly toward the next mystery the moonlight forest had to share. The path beyond the glade narrowed gently, as if inviting only those who truly wished to wander further. Elira followed it with slow, thoughtful steps, her heart still glowing with the quiet magic of the lantern-lit clearing. The air grew even softer here, kissed with the scent of damp earth and blooming night flowers. Crickets sang their lullaby in the grass, and the wind rustled gently through the trees, carrying with it whispers that sounded almost like laughter, almost like song. The trail sloped downward, curving like a stream through the forest, until the trees parted once again to reveal a small grove tucked between two gentle hills. Moonlight spilled into it like silver paint, and in the very center, by the edge of a sleepy little pond, stood a great willow tree. Its long, silken branches trailed across the water like ribbons, and its trunk was wide and smooth, with bark the color of twilight clouds. The tree looked ancient, not in a way that felt old, but in a way that felt wise. It seemed to breathe slowly, its branches swaying with a rhythm all their own. At rest, Elira stepped closer, the grass underfoot cool and damp. As she approached, a breeze stirred the willow's long arms, parting them gently, as though the tree were opening itself to her. She stopped just before its trunk, and then, to her quiet wonder, a voice emerged. It wasn't sharp or loud. It was slow and drowsy, like someone speaking just before falling asleep. "I, another dream walker," the willow murmured. "It's been a while." Elira's eyes widened, though she remained calm. In this forest, nothing surprised her now. Only those who are listening with their heart can hear the melody. Elira bowed her head slightly. "It's the most beautiful sound I've ever known." The spirit floated closer, hovering just above the surface of the water. "This creek remembers the songs of every soul who has passed by. We echo their hopes, their dreams, their quiet sorrows. We weave them into our current so they are never lost." Elira listened closely. Beneath the surface melody, she could hear it now, the soft layers of emotion like musical threads. Some notes were bright and full of joy, others low and tender, like a lullaby sung through tears. "Can I leave a song too?" she asked, her voice hushed. The spirit nodded. "Of course. All you need is a feeling you wish to share." Elira closed her eyes. Inside her, a warmth rose. The quiet peace of the willow, the wonder of the lanterns, the deep remembering of her dream from long ago. She opened her mouth, and though no words came, a hum escaped her throat, soft, unsure at first, then fuller. It flowed out of her and into the air, into the creek. The water glowed faintly, catching her melody and carrying it downstream, blending it into its ever-changing song. The spirit smiled. "And now your dream lives in the water. Anyone who listens closely may hear it." Elira placed her hand over her heart, feeling its steady rhythm. "Oh, thank you," she whispered. She crossed the delicate bridge, the creek song following her, wrapping around her like a silken thread of comfort. The moon above shone brighter now, and deep in her soul, Elira knew her voice had joined something eternal. Elira followed the moon's soft glow deeper into the forest, where the trees stood farther apart and the sky above stretched wider, like a dome of silver silk. The air had grown even quieter, as though the forest was holding its breath, waiting for her to arrive at something sacred. The path led her to a still, open clearing where the moonlight pooled like liquid silver. In the center lay a round, shimmering lake, so perfectly still it looked as though it were made of glass. Not a single ripple disturbed its surface, and it reflected the sky above with such clarity that it was almost hard to tell where the water ended and the heavens began. This was the mirror of moonlight. Elira approached slowly, each step softened by moss and moonlit grass. The air here was cool and hushed, full of a kind of silence that spoke straight to the heart. A silence that made room for memory, for reflection, for truth. She knelt by the edge of the water and gazed into it. What she saw first was her reflection, of course, her wide, wondering eyes and moon-dusted hair. But as she looked deeper, her image began to shimmer, to shift. The water stirred faintly, though there was no wind. Then came the visions, not sharp or loud, just soft impressions. She saw herself as a little girl, laughing barefoot in a summer field, chasing dandelions. She saw the sadness she once carried tucked beneath her smile in later years, the sadness she hadn't fully acknowledged until now. She saw the strength that grew quietly inside her, like roots spreading deep underground. She saw her hopes, her fears, her quiet courage. The lake showed her not just who she had been, but who she was. All of it, without judgment, without shame. Just truth gently offered. Illyra didn't look away. She let the images wash through her, even the hard ones, especially the hard ones. And in doing so, something softened inside her, a tension she didn't realize she'd been holding. A breeze drifted across the clearing and the surface of the lake shimmered like starlight. The moon hung above it like a guardian, casting its silver beams across the still water and onto Illyra's face. Then, just above the lake, a figure appeared, not of flesh, but of light. A tall feminine shape, cloaked in moonlight, with eyes like quiet skies. She spoke not with words, but with presence, her thoughts flowing directly into Illyra's heart. This place holds no lies, only light. You are not broken, child. You are unfolding. Tears slipped down Illyra's cheeks, soft and cleansing. But I forget so often, she whispered aloud. I forget who I am. The moonbeam stepped closer, placing a hand of glowing light on Illyra's shoulder. That is why you are here. To remember, the forest does not give you something new. It helps you rediscover what was always you. The light around her grew warmer, not in heat, but in comfort, like the warmth of being truly seen, truly known. Illyra looked once more into the lake. This time, her reflection was peaceful, her eyes calm. She saw presence. A girl brave enough to walk through shadow, curious enough to follow a melody, kind enough to listen to trees and water and light. She smiled, and the lake smiled back. The figure of light faded gently, merging into the moon's glow above. Illyra rose to her feet. The forest stirred around her as if satisfied. She turned back toward the trees, the path waiting once more. The moon lit her way, and in her heart she carried a reflection that would never fade. The path from the lake seemed to lead her forward, yet the trees felt distant, as if the forest itself was whispering its final goodbyes. Illyra walked slowly, not out of hesitation, but with a deep sense of gratitude for the journey that had carried her so far. The moon above was now a soft crescent, her silver light mellowing into the early hours of the morning. The air was cooler, the birds silent, as if the world had momentarily paused in anticipation. As she walked, the trees began to thin, their tall trunks shrinking into the distance. The sky grew wider, and a soft breeze whispered through the tall grasses that began to surround her. The path she followed opened into a vast meadow, a place so large, so peaceful, that it seemed to stretch on forever. This was the field of forever. The grass here was unlike any she had seen before. It was soft as velvet and shimmered in shades of gold and silver. Each blade of grass glistened as though kissed by stardust, catching the moonlight in its delicate strands. Flowers bloomed in quiet clusters, their petals glowing faintly, radiating calmness as if to soothe the soul. Illyra stepped into the field, feeling the softness of the earth beneath her feet, grounding her. She stretched her arms out, embracing the vastness of the field, feeling the gentle rhythm of the breeze pass through her hair. The air smelled of honey and lavender, the scent of peace, of quiet moments long forgotten. It was here in the heart of the field of forever that Illyra understood the quiet magic that had been guiding her all along. The forest, the willow, the creek, and the moonlight, they were not separate from her. They were pieces of a story that lived inside her, a story that had been waiting for her to uncover, to remember. She sat down in the middle of the field, her legs folded beneath her, her arms resting gently on her lap. The sky stretched out above her like an endless sea of stars, twinkling softly. Everything felt right. Everything was exactly as it should be. A soft glow began to form around her, not from the moon or the stars, but from within the field itself. The flowers, the grasses, and the wind seemed to pulse with life, gently wrapping themselves around her in a cocoon of light and warmth. It was as if the field was saying goodbye to her, or perhaps thanking her for the journey she had taken, for the courage to remember, to walk through shadows and into the light. Illyra closed her eyes, breathing in the peace of the moment. The world felt still, as if time itself had paused to let her rest. A deep sense of calm washed over her, a calm that felt ancient, a calm that felt like home. She lay back on the soft earth, the stars above her swirling gently in patterns that spoke of timelessness, of infinity. It was here that the true magic of the journey revealed itself. It was not in the places she had seen or the lessons she had learned, but in the quiet understanding that she was always whole, she was always enough. The soft breeze lulled her into a deep, restful sleep. field of forever with its golden grasses and shimmering flowers became a sanctuary, a place where every worry, every fear melted away. As Elira drifted into a peaceful sleep, the stars above her whispered softly, the moon casting one last gentle light on her face. The forest, the lake, and the willow tree all held their breath, watching over her with quiet affection, knowing that the journey was complete. Good night, dear soul. May your dreams be filled with the peace of the forever field.